Welcome, everyone, to the May 31st, 2019 edition of Ask Me Anything. This is Dan Janal, your host and your book coach. I am delighted to be here today to answer the questions that came in over the transom. And if we have time, I'll be happy to take additional questions from people on the call today. I do want to respect your time, so we try to keep these sessions to 30 minutes because I know you're busy, and that's cool. So we received a number of questions today, and we'll get started right now. First, I want to let you know what's happening in my world. I am releasing a new book. It's called Free Writing Apps and Tools for Authors, Bloggers, Content Creators, and Influencers. It is available now on Amazon for the amazingly low price of $2.99. And if you have a Kindle Unlimited account, you can probably get it for free. And I think you will really enjoy this book because I learned about literally dozens and dozens and dozens of software programs and apps that have made my writing life a whole lot easier. Things like grammar checkers, spelling checkers, prompts, thesauruses, and these aren't your grandfather's thesauruses. These are thesauruses on steroids. So if you've ever had a word on the tip of your tongue and you didn't know what the word was, there's an app for that. If you're distracted by Facebook and social media and you wish there were a way to cut that out of your life, well, there's an app for that. If you're sick of paying Microsoft thousands of dollars for their tools, well, there are free apps for that too, and on and on and on. I had a lot of fun writing the book. I think you're going to have a lot of fun reading the book and finding out little tools that you didn't know existed that can make your life easier. Things like transcription tools that will literally transcribe your seminars for free. So the book will pay for itself many, many times over. So head over to Amazon and get your copy of Free Writing Apps and Tools for Authors, Bloggers, Content Creators, and Influencers. Linda asks, should writers do their own editing? And the answer is yes, of course they should. And they should also hire at least 2 copy editors to review their work as well. Here's my story. I just finished writing a book with my co-author. He's a doctor. He gave me all the ideas for the book in terms of the medical knowledge that he wanted to share with people about Medicare and Medicare Advantage. But frankly, it was boring. So I turned it into a thriller. We created characters, we created plots, we created chase scenes, we created all the things that Tom Cruise does on his movies. So we made it a lot of fun. It was a pleasure to write. And when I was done with the book, I ran it through the spell checker, obviously, the one that comes with Microsoft, and it found some errors, as I'm sure it would. Then I ran it through 2 different grammar and fiction editing software programs. One is called AutoCrit, which I think does a great job, but it doesn't retain formatting, so I wouldn't recommend it. And another one called Pro Writing Aid, which does pretty much the same thing and does retain all your formats for spacing and chapter fonts and sizes and such like that. So Pro Writing Aid, great tool. And what it does is basically it'll find words that you overuse. It turns out I use the word just a lot, and so, and even. And those words aren't really needed. Maybe in a few cases they are, but in 99 cases out of 100, it isn't. So it tells you, it flags those things. It flags passive tense. It flags point of view. It flags literally 100 different things. So it's invaluable for a writer. So I went through that, and I turned over what I thought was a pretty clean copy of the manuscript to my co-writer. And he read through it, and he found a few things, and that's fine. He showed it to his wife, and she found a few things. Some were grammar, but mostly it was like perspective things. What would a woman know about a certain topic that a man wouldn't know? And that gave us a whole new perspective on a couple of issues that we cleaned up, which was great. So that's one reason why you should have other people review your work from a content point of view as well as from a grammar point of view. But here's where the story gets even better. We hired a copy editor, and she knew style, like the Chicago manual style. And, frankly, life is too short for any of us to learn that style book in depth. But that's what these people get paid for. So she read through it, and sure enough, she changed every instance of something that wasn't in style to style. Mostly numbers. It was no big thing, something that was not earth-shattering, but things that agents and publishing houses would have looked at and said, oh, this is the work of someone who doesn't know what they're doing. You can just tell. So she cleaned up all of those things. So that was great. She knew things that we didn't know. So software cleaned up things that we took for granted. She cleaned up things that we didn't know about. And then, but I realized that she did a really good job, but I also realized she didn't find many typos. And frankly, we're not that good. There's always going to be a typo somewhere. So we hired another copy editor to look at it again. And sure enough, she found a couple of typos. And frankly, she saved our butts. And remember, this is after at least 5 other people and software programs had read through the manuscript. And the mind wants to see what the mind thinks it wants to see. So if I said a sentence like, she looked as if her life was going in slow motion, like a slow motion movie picture. That's what I said, slow motion movie picture. Well, instead of typing movie, I typed moving, Moving. I didn't catch it. My co-author didn't catch it. No one else caught it. This second copy editor caught it. So should writers do their own editing? Yes, you should do your own editing to get it up as good as you possibly think it can possibly be, and then show it to at least 2 copy editors, if not more. Well, copy editors will charge, of course, but friends, beta readers, other people who can give you their viewpoint and their insights and spot a few errors, either with typos and grammar or even with content and context. Everyone will see something different, and you'll have a better book as a result of it. Janice asks, I'm interested in what happens after the writing and editing process. In my mind, that includes interior design, cover design, and marketing and PR. Well, yes, Janice, you are absolutely correct. It takes a village to create a book. I find this very interesting when I talk to my coaching clients at the very first stage when they say they want to write a book, and I say, great, and actually with my prospects, and they say, great, and how much will it cost? And I give them a rough figure based on what I know about them and the size of the project and such like that. And then I say, but by the way, that means you're going to get a manuscript. You have to turn the manuscript into a book. This is something they hadn't thought about. What do you mean? Well, it's got to be copy edited. It's got to be proofread. It's got to be laid out for the interior, whether it be for a print book or whether it be for Kindle, because you just can't upload a Word document to a Kindle book without seeing some serious formatting errors and things that you never planned on. You need to have a cover designer. You need to have a back cover designer. So those are all things that go on in production. Now, if you're loading the book to Kindle, that's fine. There's no real cost beyond that. If you're printing a book, there are 2 ways. One is print on demand, which means you upload the corrected format to Kindle, to Amazon, and when someone buys a book, they will actually print the book and send it out for you. So the days of having 3,000 copies of the book in your garage are gone. Unless, of course, you want to have 3,000 copies of the book in your garage and sell them at your events, which is perfectly fine. But that means you have the whole area of what size book, what paper quality for the book, what cover quality do you want for the book? In other words, is it paperback? Is it hardcover? If it's hardcover, is it embossed? Is it gold embossed? Or you have a paper fly cover over the book itself? Or is it just going to be the hardcover? And on and on and on. There are lots of questions. Is it one color? Is it multicolor? On and on. So those are some of the things you need to think about when you're actually going into the production of your book. Alex asks, how do I parlay my new book into speaking engagements and possible leads for coaching? Okay, great question. I love the fact that you framed it this way because it means that your book was written for a purpose, to get you more money, to get you more speaking engagements that lead to clients, to get you more coaching, which leads to more money, and all that. So I think that's perfectly great that you are focused on using the book to get more business. I think people who are writing a book thinking they're going to sell 10,000 copies or 100,000 copies in this day and age, unless you're Stephen King, that doesn't happen to too many people. So using the book to get more business is really the way to go. So how do you actually do that? Well, for speaking engagements, frankly, if you don't have a book, you're not even in the game anymore, because every meeting planner and every speaking bureau assumes that you have written a book. If you haven't written a book, you're up against dozens of other people who speak about the same thing you do, and they have written books. So a meeting planner who looks at 10 different portfolios of possible speakers and has to make the decision to hire one, they have to weed people out. Well, what are one of the factors? One of the factors is the fact either you have a book or you don't have a book. And bingo, that person is gone. So I think writing the book is essential for getting the speaking engagements. Unless, of course, you happen to be a celebrity or are a vice president of a major well-known company or such like that, where they want your name and your brand to be on their panel or their event. But for most of us who are not in that category, the book makes us into quasi-business celebrities to be respected. So use your book as a foothold to get into the game. For more information about this, I refer people to my good friend David Newman at doitmarketing.com. He has a whole program and coaching business involved that helps authors and thought leaders get speaking leads. So in the limited time we have here, I think I've covered this, so you can talk to David about the next steps. Steve asks, I'm thinking about writing my first book, and I've been told that I should write a proposal and shop it to several publishers before writing the book. The premise being that getting the third-party validation from a publisher lends credibility, and it's worth going through the process and the delayed time to market for the potential of securing a deal. What is your view of that? Well, frankly, I'm not sure that's the best way to go, and here's why. Yes, if a publisher is interested, you know you could have a deal. That's great. But the steps that it takes to get to that point could be long and difficult, and you could be losing a lot of money in the process. Here's why. First of all, publishers don't look at manuscripts from unsolicited people like you and me. They want to vet proposals and queries before they even look at anything. So they rely on agents. So the agents are the first people who make the cut. So you're sending your proposal or your query letter to an agent, and they get hundreds of these proposals every day. You can go to their websites. They have forms to fill out. They have procedures that they want you to follow. And if you don't follow their procedures exactly, they throw you out because they have too much to choose from already, and they can only represent so many people. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, because this is the way that every industry works for every job opening you've ever thought of or have been in a position to hire someone for. So it's no different in the literary business. So you're competing against hundreds of other people who are trying to get the attention of an agent. Now, let's say you do get the attention of the agent. They think it's a pretty good idea. Well, they're going to want to shop it around to the publishers, and that's going to take some time. So you have the time invested in trying to get an agent. You have the time invested in the agent trying to get the attention of their publishers, and they are friends with the publishers. You know, they do open doors. You know, if an agent believes in a project, then yeah, that's cool. But what's happening in the meantime? You're losing money. You're also losing enthusiasm for your project because you're saying no one is interested in this. Well, you know, during the summer, agents aren't really busy. You know, they're taking the summer. They're taking 3-day weekends right now. They're not working on Fridays. They're at the Hamptons. So you might be beating yourself up saying no one's returning my proposal queries, when in reality they're out at the Hamptons drinking Mai Tais, so, and not even thinking about you. So I think it's important for people to write their books and see what happens and use their book as a marketing tool and take accountability for their own progress. If at the same time you can send queries out to agents, and if someone bites, that's great, but the first thing they're going to ask is, how many words have you written? Is the book done? And if you say, well, I haven't started it yet, I was waiting for someone to bite, well, you know, that's going to tell them something. If you say, well, it's a 50,000-word book and I'm 95% done, that tells them something too. So what position do you want to be in? So that's my answer. Steve asks, what is your view of self-publishing versus published approach for first-time author consultants. Well, I see the book as a marketing tool, and I think you're going to make a lot more money writing the book, publishing the book yourself, and sending the book to potential prospects, whether they be meeting planners at conventions so you can get speaking engagements so you can promote yourself at those events, or whether you send the book directly to CEOs and CFOs and other C-suite executives at companies to try to get their consulting or coaching business. I think that's the fastest road to the money, and we always believe that the fastest road to the money is always the best. So I would strongly encourage you to do self-publishing. If your book really takes off, if it really hits a core market, you can always go and find an agent and a publisher after the fact. The fact that you self-published a book in no way removes the possibility or the opportunity for a major publisher to pick up your book and publish it. So I would go the self-publishing route because it's the fastest way to get to the money. Steve asks, what marketing actions should I prioritize to build momentum to gain pre- and post-launch speaking engagements to get in front of target audiences? Okay, great question. When I first read this, I thought it was how to build marketing for the book itself. So I think that's important. I'll answer that question, even though you didn't ask it. And it does lend itself to your other question as well, and that is build a big list. Anything you could do to get people on your list, to build a relationship with that list, will help you in the long term. So how do you build a list? You write articles and post them on other websites. You write articles and post them on LinkedIn. You use hashtags and keywords so that people are looking for your topic, like HR or leadership or careers or writing a book, will find those articles, will read about you. You have a link to your website so people can join your list, and then you can market to them. I think that also works with speaking because meeting planners are looking for people like you, and they will go to places like LinkedIn and Google and look for new trends in whatever your industry is. And if you've written articles like that, then you stand out. So writing is a great way to get speaking engagements and other engagements, and the bigger your list, the more successful you'll be. And if you do decide to have a publisher publish your book one day, then they're going to ask you about your platform, which essentially is your list, how big it is, how many other opportunities you have for marketing, like do you appear on podcasts, do you have your own podcast, do you speak at other events, and such like that. So the more visibility you have, the better. People always ask me, do I have to be on certain platforms of social media? Should I be on them all? Whatever. You have to be on the ones where your prospects live. So if they live on LinkedIn and no others, just promote on LinkedIn. If they're on LinkedIn and Facebook, do both of those. So it really depends on where your prospects are, and then devote your time to those areas. Those are the questions I received by email so far. I'm going to open up the phone line to see if people have additional questions. So let's see. I'm going to unmute everyone, and then I'll call on people individually and see if they have questions.
So I'd like to hear a little bit more about PR. Should we hire a PR firm once the book is done? How do we get a lot of visibility for the book?
Okay. So Janice is asking, should we hire a PR firm? How do we get visibility for the book? Well, it really depends what your purpose is for the book. If you want to sell thousands and thousands of copies of the book, and you want to get on TV shows, and you think it's a topic that TV shows and newspapers and magazines are seriously interested in, then a PR firm could open doors. if you do hire a PR firm, make sure that they have the credibility to open doors for you, and then they're worth their weight in gold. So in other words, if you've written a book about management and this PR firm has a successful track record in helping other authors like you get placed on the TV shows and the magazines and the vertical markets you want to be in, then, yeah, you should hire them, and that would be a good thing to do. If they don't have the experience, but they say, oh, we've helped other authors in other industries and you're no different, run for the doors, because in PR today, it's all about relationships. Reporters get so many queries and so many phone calls and so many emails. It's difficult for them to keep up with everything. So they trust PR people who they've worked with before. And that's great. Trust is good. So if they have that trust with the PR firm, they can open the doors and get you in there, and they've done it with other people like you, so that's great. If they haven't, then it takes them a lot of time and effort to break through the filters that reporters have set up to create that relationship, and you'll be paying for it. So if you do want to hire a PR firm, hire someone who has the experience, the direct experience that can help you. Does that help?
Yes.
Great. Does anyone else have a question?
Yeah, Dan, this is Steve.
Hi,
Can
Steve.
you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Question. Good session. Appreciate your expertise here. Question on probably layout of illustrations, graphs, tables, pictures, or illustrations. Obviously, there's the manuscript, which is just block text. What I was looking at one of the books that you referred to in How to Write Your Book in a Flash, David Field's book, Guide to Winning Clients, as an example. And he has illustrations in there, and it's laid out very nicely. What as I build out my book with something like that in mind? Obviously, this is about production and layout. What advice do you have about tracking this or incorporating those kinds of things into the end product?
Sure, great question. I think it's very important to break up the black walls of text of doom. That's how people refer to it in the publishing industry. Page after page, that's the way books have been printed for hundreds of years. I think that Jeffrey Gitomer, the sales coach and speaker, really broke that mold 15 years or so ago when he started using very large type and graphics and colored paper and high production values and such like that. And people just started like, wow, this is a cool book. I haven't seen many people do that kinds of things following him, but you may want to pick up one of Gitomer's books because they really are laid out. He pushes the envelope as far as you can go in a very, very good and thoughtful way. Now, having said that, you can easily spice up any book with charts, graphics, cartoons, pictures. My book has charts. It has pie charts. It has a step chart. It has pictures of me and Ken Blanchard and me and Jack Welch to break up the copy and also to build credibility. Your book can easily have those same kinds of elements. I have cartoons in my book because I reprinted them from David's book, which is an excellent book, and I'm glad you picked it up. And he draws his own cartoons, little stick figure cartoons. They're not fancy, but man, are they effective. So if you do that every couple of pages or so, it'll break up those blank walls of text. Or in addition to that, you can have call-out quotes, which are a sentence or a phrase from the book that is printed in bigger type. You've seen these in many books. They're called call-outs or quote blocks or pull quotes. They go by many different names, and any layout designer will know what you're talking about. So if you pick up a book and you see the normal type, then you see this block of text jumping out at you in 24-point type, which is half an inch or an inch high. Then maybe a quote from Einstein or a quote from Tony Robbins or a quote from yourself. It stands out and it makes the point for you. It also helps your readers understand what are the most important parts of the book to take away. So that's good. Lists and bullets are also good. Numbered lists or bullet lists also break up the copy. So those are good things. Subheads use boldface or printed in slightly larger type. That also breaks up the copy and also adds some white space above and below the subhead, so that makes the page look less dense and a lot more friendly. So I'm glad you asked that question. It's an important thing that people need to think about when they lay out their books. Okay. I don't hear any other questions, but I have a note for Susan, if you're still on the line. Susan was one of my book coaching clients. Susan, you're going to want to see the front page of the Wall Street Journal today and read the article about Google. I'll just leave it at that. So now you have to run to the library or go online and find it and see what I'm talking to. But they basically validated the entire premise for your book. So feel good. Okay. With that, I'm going to sign off. We do these Ask Me Anything calls every month at the last Friday of the month. Check your email. We always send out queries to say if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer anything. I didn't answer one question that came through this morning because I didn't know the answer. So if I don't know the answer, I'm not going to steer you the wrong way. And also, if you can do me a favor and do yourself a favor, check out my latest book, the free writing apps and tools for authors, bloggers, content creators, and influencers. I'm sure you're going to find at least a dozen software programs for free that will help make you a better writer and write your book faster. Thank you much. Have a great weekend. Goodbye.